Boredom is a modern invention, not metaphorically, literally. For 300,000 years, the human brain never had the chance to be bored. There was always something that needed doing, something that could kill you, something that had to be figured out. The idle mind wasn't a philosophical problem. It was a death sentence. So what happened? Why are you bored right now? And why is that boredom quietly doing more damage than most people realize? Psychologists define boredom as a state of wanting to engage with something meaningful, but being unable to find it. It's not laziness. It's not tiring. It's the brain actively searching for stimulation and coming up empty. Think about what a typical day looked like 50,000 years ago. You woke up and immediately had problems. Real problems. Where is food? Does that sound like a predator? Is the weather about to change? Is someone in the group sick? Every single moment of the day had a potential answer that mattered. Boredom requires a gap. For 300,000 years, the gap didn't exist. The word boredom didn't exist in English until 1852. Before that, the closest concept was acedia, a Latin term used primarily by medieval monks to describe a specific spiritual affliction, a listlessness, a failure to care, a wandering mind that couldn't settle on God or prayer or purpose. They called it the noonday demon, because it hit hardest in the middle of the day when the sun was high and there was still so much time left and nothing urgent enough to fill it. Boredom was always a symptom of security, and for most of human history, security was rare enough that the symptom almost never appeared. Then the Industrial Revolution happened, and everything broke. Millions of people moved from farms and villages into cities and factories. For the first time in history, enormous numbers of humans had something ancient people almost never had. Scheduled downtime. The brain, designed for constant engagement, suddenly had gaps it didn't know how to fill, because what people did with their boredom in those early industrial decades was alarming. Drinking increased, gambling increased, violence increased, not because people were bad, because the brain, deprived of meaningful engagement, started reaching for anything that produced stimulation. Any signal was better than no signal, even a bad one. In 2014, psychologists Timothy Wilson and Daniel Gilbert conducted an experiment at the University of Virginia that should have been impossible. They put participants alone in a room with nothing to do for 15 minutes. The room was empty, no phone, no book, no window, just a chair and a button that, if pressed, would deliver a mild electric shock to the participant. They were told the shock was unpleasant. They had already experienced it once before the experiment started and confirmed they didn't enjoy it. In a study, 67% of men and 25% of women chose to shock themselves rather than sit alone with their thoughts. One man shocked himself 190 times in just 15 minutes, not because he was disturbed, but because an unstimulated mind can feel deeply uncomfortable. Researchers concluded that the human brain dislikes being left alone with itself and will often seek any form of stimulation, even unpleasant, to avoid the discomfort of having nothing to process. Now imagine what that brain does with a smartphone. Every notification acts like a tiny reward. Every scroll offers a brief hit of stimulation, and every new post captures attention for a moment before the brain craves the next one. This is called hedonic adaptation on a neurological level. Your baseline for stimulation shifts upward, and then boredom gets worse, not better. Every attempt to cure boredom with more stimulation makes the underlying boredom more severe. This is why boredom is directly linked to addiction, not as a side effect, as a root cause. Study after study shows that chronically bored individuals are significantly more likely to develop substance dependencies, compulsive behaviors, and impulsive decision-making patterns. The brain isn't looking for the drug or the behavior specifically. It's looking for relief from the absence of stimulation. We are more stimulated and more bored simultaneously. That is not a paradox. That is the inevitable result of feeding a brain designed for survival-level engagement on a diet of notifications and 30-second videos. Here's what all of this means. Boredom is not a personal failure. It's not a weakness. It's not a sign that something is wrong with you specifically. It's a prehistoric brain colliding with a world it was never designed to inhabit. The brain that kept your ancestors alive by never switching off is now running that same relentless search for engagement in an environment where the threats are gone but the restlessness remains. The monks who named it the noonday demon understood that boredom isn't a lack of things to do, it's a lack of things that feel worth doing. Their solution wasn't more stimulation, but sitting with discomfort long enough for something meaningful to emerge. Today, that's harder than ever.